Let me tell you about the strangest experience I've ever had. It started one random night when my phone rang at exactly midnight. It was a number I didn't recognize, but out of curiosity, or maybe something else, I answered. There was a moment of silence, and then a voice spoke. It was calm, almost reassuring, and it said, I know you are going to find this hard to believe, but I know everything about you. I scoffed and hung up. Probably just some weird prank call, right? But the calls didn't stop. Every night at the same time, the phone would ring, and the same voice would be on the other end, insisting that they knew everything about me. The calls became more unsettling as days went by. The voice wasn't just making vague guesses, it knew details no one else could have known. It started with small things like what I wore to school that day or what I had for breakfast. How do you know that? I asked. The voice just chuckled and said, I told you, I know everything. The next night, it got even weirder. The voice predicted that my friend would call me and tell me about a secret crush, and it happened exactly as the caller said. Then they described my exact thoughts, fears I hadn't spoken aloud to anyone, and even the decision I had been debating about whether to quit a hobby I had loved since I was little. I began feeling watched, like someone was peering into my life, tracking my every move, but I still didn't believe it. It all seemed too strange. I tried to ignore the calls, but curiosity got the best of me. I'd pick up, and every time the voice would rattle off my day's events, down to the smallest detail, like the number of times I checked my phone or what I whispered under my breath when I was frustrated. The voice even warned me about things before they happened, like the moment my teacher would unexpectedly call on me in class or when I'd run into someone I hadn't seen in years. This is ridiculous, I said once. How do you know what I am doing before I even do it? The voice paused and said, because I've lived it already. That just made me angrier. It was impossible. Nobody could know that much about me. I started arguing with the voice, challenging them to prove themselves. Okay, what am I thinking right now? I demanded. The voice repeated my exact thoughts, word for word, but I still couldn't wrap my mind around it. Why should I trust some stranger who seemed to have an unnatural grip on my life? Then one evening, something happened that completely shattered me. My girlfriend, the one I thought I was building a future with, said something that knocked me off balance. She said she loved someone else. Those words hit me like a punch to the chest. I couldn't breathe for a moment. How could she? I had even bought a necklace for her, something special, a promise I had kept secretly for weeks, waiting for the right moment to give it to her. I tried to hold back the tears, but they wouldn't stop. My hands shook as I remembered the a small velvet box I had hidden in my drawer. I had bought it with so much hope, imagining the smile on her face when she would wear it. But now it felt like a cruel reminder of how wrong everything had gone. I couldn't take it anymore. In that moment of heartbreak, I left the necklace in my pocket and walked out into the night. I went to the place where I used to feel free, near the old oak tree in the park, and buried it deep in the ground. Maybe I thought that by burying it, I could bury the pain too. But the voice on the phone still lingered. The next day, the phone rang again at midnight. I had been crying, but the voice still knew everything. You have buried something important, haven't you? It said calmly as if it had been watching me the entire time. It was like the voice had been there when I made that painful decision. How do you know that? I whispered into the phone, my voice cracking, but the caller just replied, I know what's going on with you. It's all part of your story. I was confused. How could the voice know the depth of my pain? The part of me that no one else could see. But then the caller's words begin to sound more like a warning. You are at a crossroads. You don't know it yet, but this moment will define the rest of your journey. You can either let the past control you or choose to change your path. The voice had always known everything about me, but now it was speaking about the future in a way that made me stop and think. It was as if the events of my life were already written in some unseen book. The caller was trying to help me rewrite the ending. Eventually, I realized something profound. This voice knew the past, but it didn't control my future. I still had the power to decide what happened next. Every choice I made could lead me to a different outcome, no matter what had happened before. That night, the voice said one final thing: the future is always in your hands, it's not set in stone. Don't let the past make you believe otherwise. The calls stopped after that. The mystery of who had been on the other end, knowing so much about me, remained unsolved. But I had learned a valuable lesson. I wasn't trapped in the past, and I wasn't bound by fate. My life was mine to live no matter what had come before. Since that night, I have thought about the decisions I have made, both big and small. I realize now that life isn't about following some pre written script. It's about making the choices that feel right, even when they are difficult. And when the world feels like it pushing me down, I remember that I can always choose to rise. The calls stop, but the lesson I learned that night stayed with me. There is no such thing as a fixed fate, only the choices we make that define who we become.